So, Sand Hollow trip, 4-day trip. It was going to tie in with Rob Christensen and I think it's Sand Hollow Extreme Off-Road. Super good guys. Anyway, let's talk about the carnage. Let's talk about the BS, we'll call, and we'll talk about where we went wrong, severely wrong. So issue number one, driving down, why we didn't get footage of this, I don't know, but driving down my truck, I personally drive a 07 Dodge Cummins that's got over 300,000 miles, a little wounded, but it's paid for. Coming down Indian Canyon, I popped the V-band clamp that connects your downpipe to the turbo, broke it. And trying to find a V-band clamp in Price, Utah was a chore. For one, we'd left super early from town, so it's like, gosh, I think when we broke and started looking for stores it was around 7 a.m. We went to O'Reilly's, we went to Checker, we went to CarQuest, we started making phone calls to heavy-duty diesel shops, thinking that maybe there was a V-band clamp that would match something along the lines of my truck. Anyway, long story short, found one at Fleet Pride, super good guys there, hooked us up. Went to get back on the road, noticed our other buddy John started checking his trailer and stuff before we left and noticed that he had a bad wheel bearing. So luckily, we were right there at Fleet Pride. We got the parts, got back on the road, got our butts down there. As I was driving up into the water tower with the truck and trailer, I went to downshift from second to first, and it wouldn't go into first. So I tried to get it to go back into second, it wouldn't go into second. And finally I shut the truck off, put it in first, clutch felt fine, went to start my pickup, and it started in gear. My throwout bearing checked out, was done, so we started off the trip bad. Got down to Sand Hollow, you know, and I knew my truck was going to be an issue, but we just got there. My wife and I was super looking forward to wheeling and enjoying the weekend. We had a big group going down there. I mean, gosh, we had people from California, Colorado, Arizona that met us up down there, and we really wanted to have fun. So we unloaded to leave our first group because we had truck problems. They got to Sand Hollow about 2 hours before we did. So they left, they would hit the trail. We unload, we start heading down the trail, find out that they are broke as well. Caught up with them, they had to go back to the truck, and I told the small group that I was with, I said, you know what, let's just go hit the maze, let's go have some fun. I really wanted to see this old girl go up You Gotta Be Totally Nuts with the 37s. I think I could have just hit the main vein road, not having to go around or loop around that rock. I think it's got enough ground clearance, it would have went. Anyway, didn't happen. So we left them, and I wound up having catastrophic failures with tie rods. I'd snapped an axle in the machine. I'd snapped this rear axle, playing the weekend before we left. Next day, me some parts, got it back together. When I put it on the rack to make sure it was ready to go, I noticed that my factory tie rods, I've been running this machine the way it's built, portals and all, year and a half. Factory tie rods, never been a problem. I had some slop here in the ball socket where it screws into the rack. So I thought to myself, well shit, it's probably time we just do some changing with some tie rods, that way we're ready to go. So called our friends at Super ATV. I've ran these on multiple cars. I knew I was going to be good with these. They were on my first build. They were on my wife's build. They're on some other friends' build. It's a good tie rod. So I ordered them up, got everything I needed to put this together, and I thought to myself, with the portals and the portal housing, and I've got 1.5" forward control arms. So here, so you got your tie rod, here's your axle, portals out here, okay? So I thought to myself, well, reason why I have a second set of portal brackets for the fronts, because I'm going to cut this off, re-weld it further back so my steering's square, so it's not such a pain in the ass to turn. So I thought to myself, well, hey, if I've got to order a bunch of shit, I'm not doing a straight Hiem because my machine turns like garbage. It's a school bus. And I thought I'm going to order 1-inch offset Hiems and run them this way so that it will help make up for my steering. And I put this all together, no kidding, it was like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night prior to us leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning Friday last week. What I didn't account for, I'm the type of guy, like, generally never need help. I'm the guy that helps everybody else. I always have parts. We've had these things long enough. We know what's common to break. And I brought an extra rod. I brought extra pieces that tie into the rack. I brought straight Hiems. I brought multiple sets of straights, multiple sets of offset Hiems. I brought multiple sets of pins, everything I needed, because I truly thought that this would not be the weak point. Man, and before anybody says it, I know this is not the correct way to run this Hiem. This Hiem was not made to run the way I chose to run it, but I chose to run it this way because it was beneficial to my portals. So anyway, what wound up happening was, what was we on? Hiems something towards the maze. An obstacle. This thing's been up a million times. It's not even that hard. Just was working our way over to the maze to have some fun. And I barely put my front tires up on the obstacle, and I snapped the passenger side tie rod right where it comes together. Now, from the factory, there is a mark here. Some people say that's designed to break there, yada, yada, yada. What I can tell you is the mark is there to show that that's the end of the socket for as far as it's got threads. That's my opinion, but it is a weak point. And because I'm running it at an angle like this, with every time I would transfer weight, I'm not talking turning hard or trying to be mean to it, just transferring weight, turning, it would put this in such a bind. And I wish you could see, but this is super bent, super crushed up. So I mean, it's not like this isn't a junk product. This is a great product. I was using the product improper. I was using it as it was not designed to be used. And because I did that, it cost me my entire 4-day vacation with my wife for my birthday. I had to come home early. We actually came home Saturday morning. So I popped the first one. We laughed about it, ha ha ha. Sent the guys back to the truck to grab my spare. They grabbed my spare, brought it back to me, threw it on there, not thinking much about it. Thought maybe just a bad casting, bad something. Wasn't worried about it, just wanted to have some fun. So get going down the trail. We run most of the maze, go show everybody the soup bowl, things like that. Come back around, and I'm like, well, let's drop back down in. I mean, it's 6 o'clock at night. And I thought, you know what? There's enough daylight left. Matt's with us, which Matt's our YouTube guy. I said, let's go hit You Gotta Be Nuts, because I wanted to go do You Gotta Be Totally Nuts, because it's just on my bucket list with this machine. So we get down there, and Matt's putting the brakes on me, and he's like, hey, man, I got to put cameras here, here, and here. And we're waiting, and we're waiting. You know, Matt getting GoPro stuck everywhere. And I get in the car, and I'm sure he's got footage. I get in the car, I strap in, like, I just start to give it some gas, and I'm not kidding you, man. Like, I might have been 9, 10 inches climbing the little step wall in the front. And I snapped the passenger side tie rod. And that really pissed me off. Because at this point, I know I have no spare. I have brought spare everything else. Tons and tons and tons of parts. But I only brought one spare rod. So the car that we built my wife is identical to this, but a two-seater. And is running these tie rods. So we have my buddies take his machine back to the trailer, take his tie rods off, bring them back to me, and we start to get out of there. So I was super upset. My wife was super upset. My truck already had me upset and mad. Our other friends were having issues. It was just a big pain in the butt. Anyway, by this time, you guys, it's dark. And Sand Hollow, especially the maze, is no joke in the dark. And so we start working our way out of here. And I'm not gonna lie, I got turned around, I got lost. And I was taking some pretty nasty obstacles because I didn't feel like I had any other options but to take that. And I went up this nasty one, and it had like a pretty good sized drop on the backside. And I literally looked over at my wife and Matt, and I said, you know, this is gonna be nasty. The other guys behind us that were in two-seat KRXs aren't gonna like it at all, but we're long as hell and I don't care. I literally just dropped down it. I didn't turn the wheel. The wheels weren't trying to climb a ledge or dropping off a ledge. It was just as flat as it could be, just coming down. And as soon as the front tire started playing back out and the rear tires are catching up with it, man, I snapped the driver's side tie rod. Now at this point, I don't know where the hell I'm at in the maze, and I got one tie rod left that's on John's machine. So by now, man, I think it was probably like, what, Matt, 10:30? It was pretty late. And we're right along that cliff's edge, and the wind's blowing, it's colder than hell. All we've got's hoodies on because it's nice weather, it's way better than where we're from. So we didn't come very prepared, and you know, we had made all these plans to go to this barbecue place that we love, and you know, like that was all out of the question. Was gonna miss everything, and we all waited. What I don't know about you, but I felt like it was an eternity. My buddies got lost coming back with the part. Where I was at was in a hole, couldn't see, and I mean, this thing is like a Christmas tree if I turn all the lights on, and I had everything on. I left it running. Just we're all legitimately we're huddling the tunnel, you know, to stay warm, because I mean, it was cold, and I mean, that wind's blowing like crazy. And while we were waiting, we wound up, I took the offset hiems off, and I put the straight hiems on. My brain was telling me it's time to stop gambling. It was time to start playing the get your ass back to the truck in one piece. Because I mean, the maze is still, you know, quite a ways. You know, it's a good 30-minute ride at a normal speed back to the water tower. So they finally find us, give me the last tie rod, swapped all this stuff out. I'm right in the middle of getting all this stuff done. Man, I smashed the hell out of my hand. I am bleeding everywhere. I'm madder than hot. Oh man, I could spit fire. I was so mad. And we got back to the hotel, and the whole time I was waiting, you know, I was calling everybody, and I mean, we know a ton of great people down in Sand Hollow, and you know, my situation's a weird one. So the KRX is just not known to have tie rod problems. The time I've owned my business, the friends that we have that own these things, they just don't bend. Even the factory ones are super hard to bend and break. I'm personally the only one in our entire group that has a dozen KRXs that's ever broken an axle shaft. So, I mean, you gotta be pretty nasty bound up to get these things to break. So if my simple-minded self, and I thought to myself before I left, you know, even though the factory tie rods have some slop in them, I should bring them. And I thought, man, that's just one extra thing to throw in the truck. I was already running late, didn't care. I mean, Hell, I had to go to MST Power Sports. I've got 5150 whips on here. I broke my day whips in Colorado last fall. I ordered a set into here because we're a dealer for them, and they're sitting right there behind my desk. And we were pulling into St. George, and I realized that I had forgotten my whip. So the whole trip just kind of started off on the wrong foot, and we did everything we could. And I called every single person I could possibly think of, and they called their friends, and they called their friends, and finally, I'm one of those weird people that if your gut's telling you it's not your time, it's not your time. And I wound up leaving at 9:30 in the morning, and we drove home. I drove my pickup 7 hours from St. George back to Vernal, Utah, floating gears with no clutch. Thank God I can drive. And, it's a pretty quiet trip. Wife wasn't too happy. So we're going to have a makeup trip coming next weekend. We're going to go spend a couple days in Moab, take the new Beast Jeep out, and see if we can't have some fun with it with some friends. But, even though everyone in the Sand Hollow couldn't help me out, it was amazing at the community that we have for the off-road down there, to where they really tried their best to make it work. These are aluminum. You're not going to braze them. You're not going to, I'm a man of fixing stuff or rigging, however you want to call it. So my only thought was I could take one of these, and I could take the Hiem, and I go to the hardware store, find me a piece of pipe that the inner diameter that these would fit in, and I could drill a hole clear through the pipe and these, put some grade 8 bolts in it. It'd be a little sloppy, but I could finish the weekend. But with the truck being the problem, and everybody else having problems as well, my gut feeling said to go home. So I might have kicked and screamed a little bit. And we're surrounded by great people. My business partner Darren, he called and says, "Hey man," he's got a brand new Duramax. He goes, "Man, go grab my truck from the shop and get your butt back down there, put your factory tie rods back on." And I could have done that and been fine, but I just seriously had a gut feeling that it wasn't our trip. Now the gut feeling, let's talk about that. Oh, it was about 4 o'clock Saturday. Of course, I'm just sitting at home, and I start getting all these pictures, okay, of Rick Highsmith and gosh dang, Nick Highsmith and Britton Baskin, what we call BJ, and John, my buddy John, he purchased my wife's built KRX, and him and I have a bit of a deal that he is not to be too mean to it till he has it a year, because he's kind of a wild man and the little wild card. And all these machines are smashed. They've rolled, they've done this. So I don't know if because I wasn't there, they just didn't have any talent, didn't have the right person guiding them, didn't have anyone to help them. I don't know what in the world happened. But so now we've got some machines to fix. So my biggest solution for my KRX is, you know what? When you tell me that this doesn't work, okay, I call bullshit. I'm gonna make this work. So what I'm gonna do, I ordered bungs, and I have a bunch of pipe left over from my cage. I'm gonna take 120 wall, 1.25 inch, and I'm gonna build my own Hiem. Now, if this continues to be an issue because of the force that this is not square, now I'm not sure, but I'm thinking that this will be the next weak point if it breaks. So, and if that does become the issue, I will just wind up going back to a straight Hiem. Life gets in the way, busy. I promised myself I'll do this winter, but between the tow truck and the Jeep and everybody else's projects, simple things like this just got to go on the back burner, unfortunately. So my bungs will be here today. I'm going to build 2 sets, not 1 set, 2 sets. I'm going to build 2 sets of offset Hiems. I'm going to build 1 set that I can have for spares for one, which I mean, in all reality, there's no way in hell that rack with me steering is going to bend 120 wall. There's just no way. So either I'm going to check out the rack or I'm going to snap those pins. So we'll find out what's going to happen. But either way, we'll have some backups. And the one thing I learned was a lot of places, a lot of off-road shops, and I'm not pointing fingers at Sand Hollow or anything like that. I think it's just in general. What Anarchy Off-Road Utah is going to do from here on out, no matter what, any customer of mine or any person by that matter that comes to my town and has a tie rod problem, I have bungs and I have Hiem joints, 1/2 inch, 5/8, 3/4, 1 inch, 1.25 inch, all up into the Jeep stuff, to where if you have a tie rod problem and it is going to cost you your trip, I will build you some. Now, they're not going to be painted, they're not going to be powder coated, but they're going to get you through the weekend to enjoy your trip and enjoy your family and enjoy your friends. So we will see what the next step of this looks like.